All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pull white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Oh, we got a lot of white lightning today because we're talking relationships shit
Hmm.
and male female dichotomies, which you're not allowed to say dichotomies anymore because you're supposed to have a spectrum or something like that. So we're gonna get into it, really. I hope somebody benefits from this because
Hmm.
we're all in relationships, and it could be your best friend. It might not even be like a relationship like a marriage or girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. It could be
It's
your
true.
best friend that you're dealing with. It could be anything. So hopefully we dive into the weeds and you get something out of this.
And part of this is, and this is the weekends are usually our wheel of overthinking, wheel of time ideas. And part of this came from Jason from your lengthy comment that we talked about last time, which for some reason has disappeared. I don't know if you deleted it or YouTube deleted it.
Yeah. Let
Uh,
us know if you deleted it or not because it's gone.
yeah,
It's
I'm not sure what's going on there, but um, you had made an interesting point about the rigidity of the White Tower, of the female half of the power structure of the Wheel of Time universe, contrasted with the Ashaman and what Rand started to do and then kind of forgot about to his detriment, but then Logain picked up on, and that was part of his glory was not only did he take what Rand had started, but he enhanced it
Mhm.
with getting his faction out into the woods and working on other skills instead of just being weapons, which was Jason's point is they had to because they remembered learned, instilled in themselves that yes, we are soldiers, but we are more than that. And the fact that a big component of that that I think we kind of glossed over, we talked about a little bit, but I think is bigger the more I think about it, is the fact that in the Black Tower, they have families.
Mm.
No one has a family in the White Tower. Remember, there are a few times where we are told it is rumored that an Aes Sedai married their warder, but it's kept secret for some reason.
Which is crazy because now I mean you're saying this in front of me for the first time and I'm reacting to it is this is like it's like Robert Jordan predicted what was going to happen with the workforce as it went forward. Because all of a sudden, we had this long period of time of what we call patriarchy, right? Where the male made all the money and the female was the support role. And all of a sudden, she could supply for herself. And they went all in. They went all in. And the White Tower is that. The White Tower is that because there's no freaking partnership. It's just I am the power.
And
And wow, I didn't even think about it till just this second. Okay.
and because of that, it has become incredibly, again, our favorite buzzword lately when we're talking mental health is rigid. The both structurally and then that is reflected in their thinking. The Aes Sedai are very rigid in their thinking. This is the way that this has been since the breaking of the world. This is the way it will always be. This is the best way. This is the only way, and that is reflected in the structure in the institution, which is also why the institution isn't trusted.
Hmm.
Yeah, even
Well, just as we
as
talked about the bureaucracy, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
I don't remember if it was Moraine or Sawan who early on in the series makes the comment that even Pedro Nial, the head of the White Cloaks, would answer a summons by the Emerald seat. He would plot the whole way on how he was going to assassinate her, but he would
Again,
still come.
again, another underappreciated character. He
Yeah,
was he was
yeah.
well fleshed out. It was great.
It was really the thing that made that Morgase's story interesting was their
Mhm.
interaction, and then it kind of fell apart afterwards. Her
Because that
storyline.
was the most interesting part of it.
They're
It
sparring, yes.
actually was a victim of the setup. The setup was so good that you couldn't follow it up.
Yeah, because their mental sparring, their intellectual
Yeah.
sparring was so good.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, the point being, they ruled through force, frankly, force and coercion. They did not rule through leadership.
Hmm.
And this is ultimately when Rand finally becomes who he needs to be, who he's supposed to be, the real hero, if you will, the true hero. It's because he finally comes to terms with, I have to lead. I can't shove people where I want them to go. I need to lead them. And uh
Which unfortunately he had to get through almost killing men
yeah,
to get there. Yeah.
well,
Men, not men, M-E-N, men, M-I-N. Yeah.
you know what?
Yes.
I had new thought here, thinking out loud, is that is analogous to what I just said about the Black Tower having families. It is because of men's persistence, and I ain't going anywhere, sheep herder. You're not going to get rid of me. You're not going to put me away. You're not going to, lock me in a tower like Rapunzel. I'm with you because I'm going to help you and I care about you.
Hmm.
And we're going to do this together no matter what you say. Her stubbornness, her persistence, Rand needed that. And if it
She
worked
was
for her,
actually, she always used the word sheep herder with him. She was the sheep herder of his girls. She was the stubborn
exactly,
one. Yeah.
exactly. Um, Stubborn, but that shepherd motif. There's a reason you see that so much in the sayings and the parables through the New Testament, or even going back to the Old Testament in the story of David, because working livestock is hard.
Hmm.
It takes a lot of persistence. It also takes a lot of care.
Well, it also takes a lot of openness because you have to be aware of your surroundings.
Exactly.
When you're planting crops, you just do the thing in the time you need to do it. When you're protecting your livestock, you need to be aware of every threat that comes in the way.
You need to be aware of the threats. You need to be
Hmm.
keeping an eye on the flock, on the herd of
Hmm.
where are they? Have I got the whole herd together? Is anyone straying off?
Does anybody else remember the Looney Tunes? The freaking dog
Oh man, I love
that would
those.
lift his hair so he could see? You have to lift the hair.
And he and the wolf would punch the
Oh
clock.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
I love
that was
those.
those were my favorite. Those were
Those were
my
some of the
favorite.
best.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that
Aside
motif,
from Tom and Jerry, those were my favorite. Tom and Jerry was
uh
uh,
I liked Roadrunner and Coyote more than Tom and Jerry. I thought,
really okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like Tom
Um,
and Jerry more, but
but it's interesting that she continues, and I don't know how much of this is on purpose, maybe more later as she really starts to open her mind and become more intellectual. And at first, I think she is just teasing, but I think the constant reminder that he is a sheep herder, I mean, he basically says as much to Avienda in their scene together, um, before they go to the piece of the dragon thing, is I couldn't have done this if I was still who I was when I was Lews Therin. The fact that I was raised a shepherd and a farmer,
hmm.
the fact that Tam is who he is and he raised me the way he raised me, that's what led me here. Because you kind of see this, and then Rand talks about it a little bit when he starts to get the memories back, is Lews Therin's great failing is that he was not persistent. He was just stubborn. And so he went and he did it himself.
Well, this is actually something that has been weighing on my mind. Local politics where I live is I lived here this amount of time, and that's what gets you voted in. And it's it's almost like scary how much that my clients benefit from the fact that I didn't live here,
Mm.
that I didn't grow up in suburb, Friendswood, bougie, everything. It was like I know what it's like to struggle, and you're struggling with this thing. This one thing. I mean, it's a first world problem, It's you want to lose 5 pounds, right? And the response to that has been so positive that we've had success. We've had I've had more success than most gyms, period. Just my personal career. And it's because I come from a place where I'm like, hey, you have to work for this. You actually have to like get up and grind for that. And I wish this town would learn that because the local politics is I've lived here for this long. I'm the best person for the job. And it's like, that's not the best criteria. The
Yeah,
best criteria is what's right for what we need now. Yeah.
exactly. Well, okay. Speaking of, this is where we're going to be a little more negative today because of what's been on my
I'm
mind. But
feeling positive because I'm not feeling well and I want to be positive.
well, okay. So the positive before I lead into where I'm feeling negative is I I it seems like by the numbers and by the cultural movement, we culturally and then even we individually, you and I, but also those of you listening who have commented on these things, I feel like we are making progress in that regard when it comes to boys and young men. And that is reflected in the polling that we have talked about in this movement of reclaiming masculinity. And yeah, there, as we talked about last time with Fuentes and Tate, which who we've ranted about before, there are some problems there because there are, like I referenced that clip of Peterson on Rogan
Bad influences. Yeah.
literally diagnosing it. And he made the point that you will always have 3 to 5% of the population with these psychopathic dark tetrad, some or all of those. And what what those kinds of people are is they look for these areas to manipulate and take advantage. And that's what you're seeing with some of these, more corrupt grifter manosphere types. But I think overall, I think there are more positive voices than negative voices. And I think you are seeing a movement amongst boys and young men back to masculinity, back to rejecting this idea that all masculinity is toxic. The negative side, though, the problem is, and we're going to rant about women here. And I was scrolling through my ex because I can't remember who said this a while ago that kind of put this kernel in my head is, and it was a woman, some pundit blogger person that I follow, and she made the point, that same point, that we're making progress there on the male side, but we're not making progress or we're going backwards on the female side because you are now allowed to point out these things when it comes to men, when it comes to young boys, that they need masculinity, they need positive male role models, all these things, and that's good, but you aren't allowed to criticize girls and young women.
Well, I don't know where to start with this because I'm gonna originally go to the chimps and bonobos, right? The geographic separation from chimps and bonobos is astronomical. So chimps live in a harsh landscape, and bonobos live in a lush environment. They're basically the same, except their environment. So chimps are violent. And the male, it's very patriarchal. It's very violent. I mean, the eight males will hold down one guy so he can rip off the opposing chimp's testicles. It's it's a violent environment. On the other side, they basically just have sex all the time. And I'm talking about the bonobos because the environment is lush. And what we have, and I have the wrong books up. I should have put the weirdest society, Stephen Heinrich, the weirdest people, weird being Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. Uh, we live in an environment where everything's really freaking good. And so we're basically the bonobos. The girls can just go and have sex because birth control, and all of a sudden we have no birth rate and we have this environment where guys are not happy because dating apps and you can just cut them off at 6 foot, which by the way, that's like 80% of the population gone. And it's, yeah, we live in this environment where we're comfortable. We need to get a little uncomfortable, I think.
Well, and the reason for this is so first the stark reason, because you brought up the um the demographic crisis that is looming because of this, and it just so happened that I saw a clip of from Modern Wisdom. I don't remember who he was talking to. Williamson was talking to someone about this a few weeks ago. I don't remember her name, but in the clip, they're talking specifically about South Korea because South Korea is the starkest example of this. Because right now, the demographic trend they are on, in 100 years, they won't exist. Literally, that the
Yeah, what is
demographic
it like?
trend.
There'll be like 25% of the population in 2 generations or something.
Yeah,
It's
something like
something like
so.
that,
It's the extreme number I remember is that out of 100 South Koreans right now, there will be out of 100 South Koreans, those 100 South Koreans will have four great grandchildren. So a
It's fucking
96%,
crazy.
and the woman he was talking to brought up that there is literally nothing in human history that compares to this.
Well, no,
The
there
Black
is.
Death, the
There,
Mongol hordes, the as a percentage of the population reduction.
well, there is because you're bringing up masculinity, and 80% of females in history of the world have ancestors. Only 20% of males.
That's true. We brought that stat up before.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
And Genghis Khan is like pushing that 20% up. It's
yep,
what
yep.
is it? What is it like that
I don't remember. There's
50%, 40 or 50% of people in the world have Genghis Khan's.
I don't think it's that high, but it's something ridiculously high.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculously high.
They
Yeah.
can trace some small percentage of their DNA back to Genghis Khan.
That might be
Yeah,
my 4% Punjabi Indian that I have, you know.
could be.
Yeah.
Um, but
It's
but
just,
so
but I get it in the eyebrows. It's
that is the stark existential problem with this weirdness, and this comfort crisis. But then there's the more maybe micro personal side of it, which is I've got Helen Andrews' Great Feminization essay pulled up here because there's a section I want to read from it. And she made the point that one of the reasons she became kind of obsessed with this idea is because she has something like four children who are all boys. She has four boys, and she is greatly concerned with what the way we have institutionalized radical feminism and toxic empathy. What does that mean for her boys? Well, I have both. So, yeah, I'm concerned. What does this mean for my son? But then also, daughter, for most women, most of the time, and you're not allowed to say this, for most women, most of the time, ultimate. Let me back up because this applies to us too. It's just different. We have talked about this. For most people, most of the time, your greatest fulfillment is going to come from being a parent.
mm,
And right now, I shared a while ago. I shared those exit poll results of um, Trump voters and Kamala voters and what they prioritized. And for the female Kamala voter, having a family was something like 10th on the list. That's not good, especially when you look at the male side, especially the Trump side, but then even on the Kamala side, it was higher. that men are now prioritizing that higher when it used to be the other way around.
Hmm.
It used to be that women prioritize that, and they're not. And so then they get into their 40s and suddenly they don't know why they're not happy. Oh, well, gee, I don't know. Maybe it's because the thing that has made all of humanity, especially women, happiest for all of our history, raising children, passing on your genes, passing on your culture, passing on your values, you have just ignored that. And now that clock is ticking.
I'll even simplify it a little bit. It doesn't have to go even that far. It has to be, everybody says YOLO. You only live once. We're doing this, we're doing that, we're going to this concert, or we're going to this music festival, or we're going to this trip. And YOLO really is be with the people you love.
Mm,
If you just be with the people you love, how much better is your life? You know, if I go spend time with my mother, I love my mother. She's like one of the top people for me to like spend my time with. My son, we sit in the room probably about an hour every night now, and we just like make jokes and stuff. And he's great with puns, and we do that. That's like the best moment of my day. I would lose that if I was always fighting to go to the next trip, the next vacation, the next thing. One thing that bothers me is when you're on a vacation and people are planning the next vacation while you're on the vacation. And it's like, we're here. Enjoy this thing. And so, yeah, yeah, that's that. I mean, that's where my mind went with your comments there.
back
It,
to the idea of institutions and the corruption thereof. Let me read this section from The Great Feminization while I've got it up, because
you can share
um,
it if you.
I think in a weird way it is kind of applicable. Ah, fiddlesticks, I lost it. Uh, Hold on, now I've got to go find it again. Where was that section? Is here we go. All right, so um, as a reminder, she started this thought process because she heard someone talking about the current woke age and what wokeness is, and he traced it back to the firing, or the how Summers, the president of Harvard, was run out of Harvard in 2010ish.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Unfortunately, he had ties to Epstein, but what,
yeah,
yeah. Hmm.
turns out, oh darn, let me pull out my tiny violin for you.
Yeah.
But the basically the thesis was it cancel culture is feminine. It is how women treat each other in groups when they want to ostracize one of the group, that's where cancel culture ultimately comes from. And she gives a lot of stats about how women have taken over so many institutions, uh, in industries, and she gives stats on it. And in it, she links to an essay she had written a year or so before, specifically about human resources. And so, if you want to go watch that episode, or go to that episode, and we've got the links, the human resources one is a biggie, because that is where this feminine idea infiltrated corporations and major companies. Um, but I want to talk specifically to her point here about what this means, and why this connection came in my brain when Jason brought up the contrast between the Black Tower and the White Tower in the Wheel of Time. Um, and also, this shows why we have been harping on why stories are so important, because her first line here, the great feminization is truly unprecedented in history, in reality, sure, but Robert Jordan kind of foresaw this in a way, or gave you a thought experiment of what this might look like in this kind of matriarchal society, and then what that would do, and how that would evolve given human nature and given human thought patterns and human desires. So, in a lot of ways, what she says here about being unprecedented, it's not if you read The Wheel of Time, because you see a lot of this in the White Tower and in the Aes Sedai, and the way they behave, the way they treat themselves, the way they treat others, especially outsiders. Anyway, other civilizations have given women the vote, granted them property rights, or let them inherit the thrones of empires. No civilization in human history has ever experimented with letting women control so many vital institutions of our society, from political parties to universities to our largest businesses. Even where women do not hold the top spots, women set the tone in these organizations such that a male CEO must operate within the limits set by his human resources VP. That's why I said go read her essay on HR and where that came from and how that has been so corrupted, and also why I made the point about whoever it was that said even Pedro Nial would answer a summons by the Amarillan. Is okay. He is a great man, a great leader in his own right, and yet this other person could summon him, and he would be, for one reason or another, compelled to do what she said. We assume that these institutions will continue to function under these completely novel circumstances. But what are our grounds for that assumption? The problem is not that women are less talented than men, or even that female modes of interaction are inferior in any objective sense. The problem is that female modes of interaction are not well suited to accomplishing the goals of many major institutions. We have an academia that is majority female, but it will be that, as majority female departments in today's universities already are, oriented toward other goals than open debate and the unfettered pursuit of truth. And if your academia doesn't pursue truth, what good is it? If your journalists aren't prickly individualists who don't mind alienating people, what good are they? If a business loses its swashbuckling spirit and becomes a feminized, inward focused bureaucracy, will it not stagnate?
So many comments there. I have watched so many businesses uh, grow and then fall because of those exact words. Two home health businesses that rose, and then the HR became the dominant force in the business itself, and they don't fire it themselves.
Nope.
They just expect the actual people who make the money for the business to work more. And it just, yeah, that's my only comment there.
Well, you've brought it up on a personal level because on a micro level, because you work with professional athletes, and you have mentioned that you have seen personally, you know of even more instances that you have heard of, but you have personally seen instances of the woman gets the athlete and then complains to the athlete that you don't spend enough time with me, you don't focus enough on me and on your family. And so the athlete starts to do that, which then causes his skills to suffer, which means his career is shortened,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
she's gone.
That's a big point. I could have so on an individual level, I can think of four off the top of my head that were on the rise. They were professional. They were playing for the major league sports, and they got they got in with a lady, and she was like, "I want you to prove that I'm more important than everything else." What you have to understand at that level that 96.5 miles an hour and 96.3 miles an hour makes a difference.
Mhm.
and they would go from 96.5 to 96.2, and they would lose everything. Their career, I'm talking about. But then they would lose everything because she would say, "Oh, you're not making the money that we originally were, having enjoying. You're not supporting your family." And so she would leave. And it was a pattern that I've seen over and over and over and over and over again. It was prove to me that I'm the most important thing in your life. And realistically, to prove to her she was the most important thing in their life, they should have gotten better at what they did.
Exactly. That is exactly what I was going to say is
Hmm.
that is him proving to you
Hmm.
because he is doing so much to give you and any children you have this lifestyle to provide for you. That men literally shorten their lives for their wives and
That's
children.
what we do.
And
Our,
it's
that's why we live like 6 years less than the average female.
it's
It,
it is especially so directly because men are much, much, much more likely to do jobs that are dangerous. So they're shortening their lives there, or jobs that are physically demanding. So they are wearing out to their bodies. And even if it's not, men are much, much more likely to work overtime, to push for promotions. So
Mhm.
they are mentally taxing themselves and wearing themselves down. And
Let's
they
go
are
back to the
doing
chimps and
this for
bonobos.
you.
We will literally get out there and fight for your favor. I mean, I've done it. I mean, I was a prof. Everybody talks about, oh, your wife makes a lot of money. Yeah, but you know what? Would she be with me if I wasn't a professional fighter at some point? I mean, what else am I bringing to the table? Because I provide that protection, right? So we will literally get out there and fight for it, which is why we die,
Mm-hmm.
because that's taxing on your body.
And this gets to the point, one of the key points that I wanted to get into here, because I want to know your thoughts, you, Sam, but also you guys out there, what you think of this and how you would explain it. Because I think last time or the time before, I think it was last Watt time, because I think it was when we were talking about naive. And I made the point that I had to think hard, and I think it's been well over a dozen years since I had a fight with my wife. Yes, we have arguments, but we don't fight anymore. And I think it's just a matter of how we have matured individually and together, so that we don't, so that an argument does not become a fight. Well, like the next day we got into an argument, and it stemmed from some influencer person she follows. I don't know, I think travel vlog type thing. Um, and her followers had noticed that she used to have her husband in a lot of her videos and he hadn't been around. And so she made this post of, yes, we have separated, we're getting a divorce because, and they have been married 10 years. And ultimately, what it boiled down to is, from her point of view, from her side, is that he wants a family. He wants to settle down. He's much more insular, if you will. I'm more extroverted. I want to travel. I don't want a family. And so our life goals are just incompatible. And what shocked me is she said that most of the comments were, "You go, girl, live your truth." And one commenter that she saw said, "Well, wait a minute. One of you's lying or was lying, because there's no way that," and especially because something in this person's post had been about how they had, she thought they could work through it, they tried to work through it and they couldn't. And this commenter's point was, well, wait a minute, so you had to have known this before you got married, you had to have known this through the 10 years of your marriage, so one of you was lying, either to yourself and or the other person, because you you would not have gotten together if one of you didn't say, I think we can come together. I think we can compromise. Eventually, I think we'll meet somewhere in the middle and we'll be able to work it out. So who was lying?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me because I have one child and I actually wanted more. But I also have my congenital heart disease and everything, which is if anybody notices why I'm like really struggling right now. So I don't want to pass that on and we flipped the coin and we got one that was good. He no problems, no problems. And so so yeah, this is one that I wanted like four kids, but I got one. So I'm not doing my part for the population of the US. Uh Yeah, I don't know where I want to go with that, but at the same time, that was one that makes me struggle. So,
The the thing that surprised me in this back and forth with my wife is I was assuming that this commenter was going to get flamed for making this point. And my wife said, actually, no, there were just people, plenty of people disagreed, but they weren't getting flamed for it. I would have gotten flamed because as the conversation progressed and I got cranky about the I need to live my truth and I'm just not happy anymore. And here's where I get to the how do I explain this and do you guys out there even agree is to me I made this point which is where the argument started is I'm just not happy anymore
mm.
is the feminine equivalent of the male man saying, I'm not attracted to you anymore. I want a divorce, and then going and trading you in for a younger, prettier model.
So I have to bring up a post I made on
Yeah.
X, which of course we're not popular, so maybe like 18 people saw it. Actually, 18 people saw it. Uh, Part of the male-female imbalance in modernity. Men do stupid things without intending to. Women intend to do things without following through. The problem is no one gets in trouble for things you don't do. So
Exactly.
we get this is one of the imbalances in modern society is we as men get in trouble a lot. 90, I think it's 95% of people incarcerated are male because we go out and do shit.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that is not by the law. But no one gets in trouble for saying, I want to do that, and then not following through with it. And that's the difference between men and women. And this is actually something I wish women would understand because it drives men crazy when you say, I want to do this thing with you, and then you don't follow through. I wish women would understand with that because it actually might lead to like 50% of those 90% of things because it was like, oh, I want to do this with you, but I didn't. And then I go crazy and then I do something stupid.
Well,
It's,
and talking again in the macro of the cultural problem, obviously that is a problem for those individuals and for the relationships that they start and that then fail.
mhm,
But as I quoted from RJ last Wheel of Time is as he put it, the theme I keep harping on, his words, keep harping on, is men and women must work together
mhm.
to achieve their best. And
And
and we need that balancing act. Us men need that. Yeah, we're just gonna we're kind of straightforward, simple minded in a lot of ways of see thing, do thing, want do thing, need do thing, go do thing. We need that slightly more neurotic. Well, wait a minute, should you do the thing? I didn't think about that. I was just thinking that I want to and need to and could.
yeah, but at
So,
the same time, is like, okay, I want to spend Saturday night with you. Okay, so that's from her. She wants, I want to spend Saturday night with you. So man makes Saturday night happen. Oh, well, this came up and this came up, and oh, my mom called, and I just didn't have the energy anymore. Well, I just made all this stuff happen, and now we're not going to have it. You can't be mad that it drove me crazy,
Mm, mhm,
right? So it's like, yeah, the driving of crazy comes from different directions. But at the same time, women, you have to understand this. You
mhm,
really have to understand this because when you say, I intend to do X, man will make X happen. And when they make X happen and you don't follow through with it, freaking crazy. Freaking
mhm.
crazy comes out the other side. I'm sorry. Understandably.
And where this ties back to the great feminization and why I brought that up is because so many institutions have this toxic empathy, increasingly radical feminism as their ethos, then it there is no feedback. That was something that Jason, you mentioned in your long comments that we talked about. You mentioned a couple of times that is really important is you need feedback. It's back to the Wheel of Time as the example. Some of the Aes Sedai actually start to figure this out, and it's the ones who are outside of the institution.
Yeah, but we saw this with Swan and Gareth Bryan. Okay. So we saw this with Swan and Gareth Bryan because she intended for that Mirandy
Yeah,
uh, uh, intervention to be the best thing for the world, but it wasn't. And she got mad because he said, you didn't do the right thing. Because intentions only matter. This is the big fight between good men and good women. I'm not talking about like abusive men or
mm-hmm.
borderline personality disorders or whatever. Good men and good women. She said, "But I intended." And the guy was like, "But yeah, that didn't work. That wasn't the right decision." And that's what I'm talking about here is women have the advantage because they intend to do the right thing. But intentions don't matter when the action is bad.
What? I just realized that you have doubled my point because the point I was making is because so many of these institutions are biased towards women, there is no negative feedback if they do
Well,
something wrong. But to your point, there's no negative feedback if they don't actually do, if they're
yeah,
just
well,
planning, if they're
let's
just thinking
let's look at
about
affirmative care, right? Oh, you want to be a boy? Oh, okay, we're going to give you puberty blockers because I intend to do the right thing for you. The problem is now you're freaking sterile and you're going to be unhappy for the rest of your life.
it.
But I intended to do the right thing. And everybody's having trouble freaking arguing with that because they intended to do the right thing. And it's like, no, 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 no. You have to say no sometimes. You have to
Mm-hmm.
say, at least you not even no, but let's wait. Let's wait a little bit. And it's just like, yeah, that's the part that blows my mind. And that's the part where the masculine needs to step in and we have to be there and we're not allowed to.
What do you think about my hypothesis that these two things are equivalent? It's just the feminine expression of what it, and the reason this annoyed me and the reason I think it matters is because for the most part, rightfully so, if a man has been in a marriage for a long time, and especially if children are involved, and then says, yeah, you're just not pretty anymore,
Hmm.
that man is going to be ostracized, ridiculed, you know, blamed, all these things, and for the most part, rightfully so. But if a woman says, I'm just not happy anymore, our lifestyles aren't compatible, we've grown apart. Oh, well, I mean, what do you expect her to do? Stay in an unhappy marriage? Well, what do you expect him to do? Stay in an unhappy marriage? because that is from his perspective, he's not happy. You're just mad that he's unhappy because of physicality.
Hmm. Yeah, this becomes a very difficult conversation because they're both legit. And this is where I think we would have a dichotomy of opinions, in that long-term relationships should be something that are renewed over time.
Mm,
And uh, we live in a modern age where we just schedule everything. So, okay, we're going to have 4 kids. We're going to have them all within this time frame, and we're going to do this, and everything is step by step. When we're actually adapted to hormonally renew that every time we have a child.
hmm.
So it's the evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology push to this is why we stay together because I made a baby with you. The baby is vulnerable. I am sticking with you. And I'm speaking from the male perspective. I'm sticking with you. Baby is no longer vulnerable. Oh, but we have another baby. Baby is vulnerable. I'm sticking with you. I'm providing for you. Okay, so baby is no longer vulnerable. So now we have another baby, and da da da. And now you're a grandmother, and I'm dead because I'm a male. And it's something we're not adapted for to just say, okay, we're gonna have 2 kids or 2.5 kids, a dog, and a picket fence. We're not adapted for that. And so that's where I think that would be my answer to your question there. We're just not adapted for it. The
But
average the
the
average age between siblings in the world is 3.5 years. And that also follows the exact amount of hormonal balances in the human brain for a male to stick around.
but the thing that makes so Homo sapien so interesting and so different from the rest of the animal kingdom is we are so highly adaptive. So
Prefrontal cortex. Yeah.
we could adapt to it, but we won't if we don't recognize the problem, address the problem, talk about the problem.
I mean, I'm not against monogamy. I'm just saying you have to understand it. You have to understand the problems that come along with it in order to make it work.
So something that in the section I'm in Martha Beck's book, Beyond Anxiety, um, I'm into the section where she talks about exercising your right hemisphere through creativity in
Hmm.
order to help it balance out the left hemisphere. And one of the things she points out that is so interesting about Homo sapien is the fact that we play. And
Hmm.
you can see this, and she specifically cites chimps, that you see this throughout the animal kingdom, that play is very, very important for young because that is how they learn.
No, no, I 100% agree with that. Play is like this is why I hate organized sports for youth
Mhm.
because organized sports is not play. Everybody says,
Nope.
"Oh, you're playing baseball." No, you're
Mhm.
not playing baseball. You're doing an organized thing. You need to be out there having playing tag. All the bikes showing up at that one house, that
Or
kind of
even just pick up ball out in the yard. The trash can is first base, that tree is second base.
hmm.
Even that, where there is a structure around it, and yet it is still more free flow than going to the baseball diamond, taking all the gear,
Yeah, but the kids
doing
create the
the
structure.
drills.
That's the thing. The kids
That's
create the
yes.
structure. Yeah.
So the the point she made though about how we Homo sapiens are different is specifically with chimps, because you brought them up earlier, when that brow ridge starts to form and the fangs start to come in and they get into adolescence, they stop.
Hmm.
They've learned what they've learned, and now they are becoming adults and they're going to do adult things.
which
I,
is
I went out for a
freaking
walk.
brutal, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, as you said, and those
Yeah,
adult things are very brutal.
yeah.
I went out for
Testicles
my
first. My first way to not die is by bear. My second way is by chimp. So
yes.
those are the two ways I do not want to die.
Um, so I went out for my evening walk the other day, and I walked past the one of the parks here where there are a bunch of baseball fields, and I was like, why are the lights on? It's way past baseball season. Oh, it was just full of adults playing softball for an adult softball league. Adults out there playing. I mean, sure, it's organized, but it's still play. And the the point to her point, we still play. A bunch of middle-aged people out there playing softball because play is important. We still do it. We still need it. And the connection here is that that creativity is what allows us to be so adaptive. The fact that we continue to play and be creative into adulthood.
I think that's why my gym here was so successful, even though it was a small little gym in someone's backyard, basically in their shed, practicing MMA. Is we didn't do jujitsu, even though the coach was trained in it. It was we fucking played, and then when we would go compete, nobody had an answer for us. We won all the time. We won all the freaking time. I beat the freaking kickboxing champion of Brazil. I'm nobody, but I beat the kickboxing champion of Brazil. He kicked me once. That hurt. It really hurt. But uh, yeah, I just went with it. And that's how we rolled. Maybe it wasn't the best way because we're still a small gym, but at the same time, it was free. It was the best way to learn. And that's what kids do. And frankly, I think the way to age gracefully is be a kid the rest of your life. I want to be a kid the rest of my life.
You at least need those elements. You need to find that balance. You need
Hmm.
to not lose that spark somehow.
I
And
think I think this is the place I would disagree with Peterson the most. Is he always talks about Peter Pan,
mm,
about being the guy who couldn't grow up. I was like, sometimes there's got to be a little bit of that in us. Now, maybe we shouldn't be Peter Pan, but we got to have a little bit of that in us.
in from what I understand of the book, I haven't read it. Um, from what I understand of the book, and there are plenty of other stories like this where that theme is there and kind of the answer to the balance, the answer of the Peter Pan versus Wendy is
Mm.
it's in the middle somewhere, or that from what I understand of the book, it kind of makes the point that but growing up is its own adventure.
Mm.
You don't have to be stuck in Neverland being one of the lost boys. Becoming a man, or and this is where the people who watched and reviewed and hated the series that came out on Disney Plus hated it so much as they turned Wendy into a modern girl boss when Wendy was already the boss. She was
Hmm.
already the heroine of the story. What there was a reason why she was the eldest and she was the one saying, no, you have to grow up. You
Yeah,
have
well, and to sake everything back to this conversation is that's why us men grow up to get the girl.
yeah,
That's why we grow up. If there was no girl in the equation, we wouldn't grow up.
exactly. And this is this is where I don't know, and we've talked a lot about our concern for the younger generation, not just our own children, but those slightly older, and that divide of where you see boys, young men growing more and more towards what is the right, which is starting to become more meaningless now, and girls, young women, not just moving more left, but becoming more radically woke. like digging in to that ideology, and how do you bridge that divide? Because
Well, and
in order for both of them to be happy, they have got to bridge that divide.
we've gotten to a point where it's digging heels in.
Yeah,
It's not that they're actually more woke because they just talking to them personally, they don't
that's a good point.
believe in these things. And with the same with the guys that oh, I'm just getting more like red pilled. They don't really believe in these things, but they've started digging their heels in and just fighting. And I think that's the big point. We need to like stop the fighting realistically.
That is where, I had some shorts that I don't think we have time for and we don't need of I don't remember one of these podcasts where it's like a bunch of young women. I think it may have been the same podcast that Kirk went on when he talked to a bunch of OnlyFans girls. Charlie Kirk. Whatever, is that the name of the podcast? I,
There is a podcast, whatever. I don't know if it's the one he was on, but
yeah, but I was doom scrolling, trying to being a little ADD and also trying to clear my mind yesterday, and I came across a sequence of these um, from somebody I recognize. So I know I've seen him before, but I couldn't remember his name. And he was talking to these young women, and it was clear that to use the quip from William F. Buckley that I've used before, it's not that our liberal friends are ignorant, it's just that they know so many things that aren't true. And it was clear that these young girls had never been exposed to these alternate ideas. They had no idea that there was anything other than you're just some kind of terrible ist if you disagree with this ideology. Well, no, I disagree because here, let me list my reasons. And I guess from my negativity bias, I look at those things and I think we're doomed. These girls just have no clue. They aren't getting it. They aren't. Yeah, but on the bright side, they are talking. It may be a frustrating conversation, but it's still a conversation, and that ain't nothing.
yeah, well, and this is where I will maybe disagree with you a little bit is it's one of the oldest professions in the world, and there's a reason.
Well, I don't know that these were necessarily OnlyFans girls, but they could have been. But the the I think the bigger point is they were within that demographic and of that ideology that we're talking about here.
Well, I'm going to bring up the statistic we brought up earlier. Like 80% of female genetics have gone on, and 40 or 30% of male genetics have gone on. This profession exists because of those 70% of men. And it will always persist because of those 70% of men. Now we've kind of semi-corrected that with religious monogamy, but at the same time, it's not fully corrected. We see that with the Portuguese. They sent all of their young men to South America so they could fight and bring back gold because they were sexually frustrated. Uh, so, so the sex work field will always exist. And personally, on my side, I think if it's done right, it could still create balance. But no, I would like it to be. I would like it to be more. I would like people to find love.
You would like it to be unnecessary.
I would like it to be unnecessary, but it will always be necessary because of the imbalance of men. We are nature's playthings. Our genetics are so varied compared to females. Their bell curve is like our bell curve is so wide because that's just the way the world works because the women control everything when it comes to reproduction. That's why I hate to talk about the patriarchy. I'm like, realistically, is it really patriarchy? Is it really? You control it. That's matriarchy.
Certainly in the West you do.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
definitely in the West. No, no,
in any
like I've said before in a previous podcast, the patriarchy is nature because we would be freaking silverback gorillas, you know.
mhm, yeah. I'm just going to take what I want because I am,
And you're gonna
four
like
times
it
your size.
because you can't resist and you don't want the other guy to come in and kill your kids.
And it's yeah, and it is pure survival. It
Hmm.
is pure survival. Yep. Well,
Well,
uh,
way to end
uh,
this on a negative note. My fault. Sorry.
as
Can I
as
end
trying to
this?
be positive.
I'm trying to think of a positive way to end this. Texans
Uh,
won.
yeah. Well, hey, there you go.
Hey, we're doing
Hey.
pretty good. Um, we're in the playoff hunt.
The stat they showed during the game was at the beginning of the season, 0-5 in one score games, and now have won four straight after today, four straight one score games. So
Against
it's
one of the best teams in the league.
against one of the best teams in the league. So
Yeah.
hey, it's never too late to turn it around if you have a good core. And and the
Well,
Texans
I will say they say
demonstrate that.
defense wins championships. And if they don't make the playoffs, this will go down as the best defense to never make the playoffs.
Eh,
And Richard Sherman on the last, what was it, Thursday night? Or when did they play Buffalo? Thursday night?
Thursday, yeah, it was the Thursday before Thanksgiving.
He said,
Yeah,
this is Richard Sherman, which means he's Legion of Boom. He's been part of one of the best defenses
that
in the world
them, the
ever.
'85 Bears, and then
Yeah.
the early 2000s Ravens are considered the best defenses ever.
He said, this is the best defense I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is the best defense you've ever seen, and we're still in the bubble with playoffs. I would be so mad if I was those
You know what?
defensive players.
Here's our ending it on a high note because there's another
Okay.
great thing about that game in particular this afternoon is I texted to you. What an indictment of the New York Football Giants
Oh,
that
yes.
Daniel Jones looked like one of the biggest draft busts in history. And this season, he's an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
And he made
Yeah.
some impressive throws, some very impressive throws today
And you know,
while being injured.
in his defense, he has a broken fibula.
Yeah.
He's his leg
So,
is broken and he's out there playing. Yeah, yeah.
so guys and girls, sometimes you just need a change of scenery and a change of culture. As we said a couple of years ago when we were saying, hey, you know what? People on the right, you need to stop. Yeah, it's kind of annoying that they keep showing her on TV, but you kind of need to stop bashing Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey because Taylor Swift became rich and famous for basically having a series of terrible relationships and then writing songs about those terrible relationships. And as you said, hey honey, maybe there's a common denominator here when
Mhm.
every single one of your relationships is bad, and then she goes and finds an actual masculine man. And how'd that work out? How's that still working out?
Oh God, I'm rooting for them.
Exactly.
I am rooting for them. Oh God, I was at a freaking I was at a Mexican restaurant this last week and there was a guy and you could tell it was their first date. And they were like going back and forth and I was just like I want this to work. I was hoping that I would walk out and their car was rocking. You know, it was that's how good I wanted it to. And he was so nervous in the beginning. He had his arms crossed. I don't know if you can see it in the thing. He had his arms crossed and he was sitting back and he was going. And by the end, he was his hands were forward and she was like into it. And I was like, and then they were walking out and she looked back and I gave her a thumbs up. I was rooting for them so hard.
Start a slow clap.
Yeah, started slow clap. I was rooting for them so hard, and that's. I mean, I'm doing that for. I mean, again, you're correct. We hate that it's thrown in our face so much, with Taylor Swift and Kelsey, but at the same time, what man do you find if you're Taylor Swift? What man? You have to find a Kelsey,
Mhm.
you know, maybe a Drake or
Nynaeve
yeah,
had to have Lan, and Lan had to have Nynaeve. They were the only
yeah.
ones in the story for each
Rand
other.
needed three girls.
Well, that's partly because he's so messed up. He needed that much more balance.
Matt needed a freaking empress,
Yeah.
and
Well, and
Perrin
she
needed a
needed him big
princess.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah. We need that as guys. We need to earn it. That's the thing.
And any ladies out there, let your man earn it and help
Yeah.
him earn it.
hmm Yeah. Encourage him to earn it. That's how I'll use that word. Encourage him to earn it.
That's a great place to end it on. I feel much better now.
Yeah, I do feel much better. Encourage him to earn it because if you just give it to them, they're gonna be ass. But if you encourage them
Yeah.
and they do earn it, God, I want to bring up that video you talk about shorts where it's Modern Family, Ed O'Neill, who was uh, what was he in?
Married with Children.
Married with Children. Yeah, and he grabs the box and throws it over his shoulder, and then he takes it in, and he's like yelling, and she's like, "Oh, everybody thinks I'm with him because of his money, but." He's just so sexy when he's grabbing the boxes and he's throwing them over his shoulder. And then he's like yelling at the phone. He's like, your car is, her car has been there for 5 days and you haven't found the screeching, the problem with the screeching. Well, if you don't find it out, you're going to be screeching. And she goes, and with yelling at the phone. And he goes, and he grabs the drill and he starts pulling. And she goes, oh, and the drilling. And the drilling. Yeah, that's exactly what we need as men.
Mhm.
And men out there, men, not men from the book, men, do it. Fucking do it, because that's what they want. And if they don't want it, they're the wrong girl.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, we will see y'all next time for who the heck knows what, because it's getting
Oh,
close to finals week. So,
it is finals week, and
it's-
I've been still under the weather for a long time, and we're gonna figure it out. And I love you guys and Jason, Isomorphic, Scott, comment. We love your comments and we love playing off of them. So
all
go
right.
for
We'll
it.
see y'all next time.